Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We just got the August 2025 monthly report for Star Citizen, and I think there's going to be some pretty interesting stuff in here. We're going to go through all of it. I basically read through all the sections. We'll go through. I'll give some of my thoughts on some things we might dive a little deeper, especially specifically maybe some of the ship sections if there's some new images or whatnot to look at. Maybe some gameplay stuff we might touch a little bit more on. But we're going to go through most of the report today, talk about everything that is new and updated and things to be expecting coming pretty soon here in Star Citizen. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. So the very first thing we see on kind of the cover of the monthly report is a picture of what I assume to be some part of the science wing of the ASD facilities. Again, this is a third wing that we have not seen yet. That'll be coming in 4.3.1, the next patch. And this image here, you can see, I don't know if this is the entrance to that wing or just some part of the wing. It looks really cool. It definitely is keeping up with the theme of kind of those underground caves and things built, into them. So it'll be very interesting to see what things have been being worked on here and what surprises there might be to find. So pretty cool little image there to start out with. Our introduction for this report is from Ship Showdown 2955 to Alpha 4.3 Dark Territory. August was packed with action and adventure. Read on for all the details on what was done to finalize last month's content, alongside ongoing progress for the wealth of new vehicles, locations, missions, and features coming in the near and not so near future. So they're mentioning features as part of things that are coming in the near and not so near future. So again, their focus this year, they said, was going to be more so on stability, content, playability, all that sorts of things. We are getting to the back half of the year now. So seems like we might be in for some exciting stuff coming up. Of course, they're probably going to be trying to hype some stuff up for, CitizenCon Direct next month and all that. But let's go through all of it and see what new stuff there is to take a look at. All right, so let's start off with AI content. AI content continued to progress with several ongoing initiatives, including refactoring one of the NPC archetypes important to landing zone infrastructure. When complete, it will provide additional character to the various landing zones around the verse. AI content are currently working closely with core gameplay to ensure that there are contingencies in case these systems fail while live. Development continued on a new set of voice packs to refine what was learned from the dynamic conversations added throughout the year. The team also looked into developing new behavior types and re-examined existing behaviors to look for improvements. Finally, they looked into the upcoming environments to make sure they're properly set up for AI populations. So this is a bit interesting. Sounds like, I know that there's been kind of hints of work being done for some of the ATC at landing zones and stuff through some of the earlier monthly reports in the year. Now it sounds like they're working to change around kind of how the NPCs act, maybe just make it a little bit more unique to each landing zone. So there's more relevant conversations or whatever happening between the NPCs. If you're in Loreville, they're talking about things that have to do with Hurston, or if you're on Microtech, those NPCs are talking about something to do with Microtech. So it sounds like that's what they're working on mostly. So just, improving NPCs and all that sort of good stuff. Next, we have AI features. The AI features team began the month by improving NPC weapon overheating, a feature initially developed for Squadron 42. Oh, so that I didn't know that. Are the Vault weapons in Squadron? Maybe, or maybe something similar, but some kind of weapon that can overheat. Alongside this, a new firing validator was also introduced for charged weapons. The logic for trigger control was reworked, and various issues were fixed. A pre-firing stage was also added for NPCs using weapons, as previously they would only use charged weapons while in cover. A fix was also submitted to tackle an issue preventing NPCs from shooting after their first trigger pull. Various behavioral combat improvements were made, including the implementation and bug fixing of reactions to weak spot destruction and distortion damage. The team are also improving the overall experience for the Copian, starting with fixes to stabilize the flee behavior. Communication channel improvements were then implemented to allow for the better coordination of NPC groups with leaders. The devs also added improvements to automatically calculate when an NPC is alone or not to better filter what they can say and when. A bug was fixed for NPCs executing audio triggers when dead. This is not yet available in PU builds, but will be integrated soon. So some of this sounds like it could be squadron related. Again, continuing to develop the AI for that, and then some of those implementations will be moved over to the PU eventually. But it sounds like a lot of bug fixing and just refining how they react and act under different circumstances. So nothing too crazy from AI features this month. So now let's go on to the next one. Next, we have AI Tech. This is a little bit of a bigger section. The AI Tech team progressed with cross-navigation volume pathfinding. Previously, this used a heuristic approach to predict which navigation volumes would be used for pathfinding, followed by multiple pathfinding steps, with one for each navigation volume. However, they now use a single pathfinder step through all navigation volumes to guarantee the shortest path. Navigation links will be temporarily disabled after failed use to prevent NPCs from repeatedly trying to use them, which would result in them getting stuck. General improvements to ship AI behaviors were made, including when the AI is within a defend area but the target falls outside of it. In this case, the AI will actively find a position in range to target them. The team also polished the punishital behavior. Instead of statically circling the target, the AI will perform more maneuvers, particularly when targeted. In addition, bug fixes were done for NPC flying in formation and following at distance, while detailed investigations were made into the current state of AI ship combat. Following this, the team improved AI ship combat tactic commitments for the strafer and jouster behaviors. For turrets, a vision adapter specialized for unmanned turrets was added, which allows vision perception to be enabled for security systems. For the usable builder, several improvements were made. For example, the helper geocode was changed to fix collision issues. The team also made the usable group coordinator, the UGC, not reset when none was selected as the end condition. Usable data was added for links via the UGC editor. Additional fixes were made to some debug GUI issues, and the string input was changed to a drop-down list of tags. Finally, the devs implemented a way to load layouts in the usable builder. Dedicated work began on the voxel-based 3D Pathfinder, starting with preliminary refactoring for the path follower that will support both the simple and new Pathfinder. On the tech side, bug fixing was done for StarScript to ensure developers can use the tool as fruitfully as possible. The team also optimized the subsumption initialization of AI actors and made further improvements to scripted control for the flow graph, such as adding functionality to mark global function availability. So again, that section is always a bit more technical, but again, this sounds like mostly a lot of adjustments and development for NPC pathfinding in both FPS and changes for ship combat. So again, this is probably somewhat squadron related, somewhat PU related. They play off of each other in that sense. So yeah, just improvements there. So yeah, nothing too crazy for AI tech. Next, we have AI Game Intelligence Development Team. In August, the Game Intelligence Development Team continued to work on the Density Profiler, developing new IM-GUI control. They also improved the visuals of the Mission System V2 UI prototype and outlined the properties design. In pursuit of the team's goals of unifying the overall scripting tool language, they also began working on the design of the new entity scripting UX. Game Intelligence Development also continued to fix some small bugs and worked on features requested and suggested by the game designers to improve StarScript. Again, this is more of I think this is going to be more internal tools, but if the internal tools work better, makes the process easier for the level designers and game designers and all that sort of stuff, which then in turn will make the game better. So everything that they do definitely helps us in the end. Next, we have animation. Throughout August, Animation worked on improvements to the Copian as well as a new creature. They also created assets for the upcoming Medgel dispenser and made a pass on death reactions to ensure they appear as expected. Ooh, interesting. We'll talk about that in a minute. Facial animation worked alongside mocap and narrative to capture additional content for releases coming soon and into early next year. They also worked through previously captured dialogue that will soon be available in-game, including for brand new mission givers and additional lines for Amelia Boyd. In addition, they continue to support the narrative team with SSN News Flash reports that will be visible in-game during timed events. So, that's not that long of a section, but there's a lot of information that's implied in there. So, improvements to the Copian, new creature, which I don't have any idea on that. There's there's a couple different options that it could be. Big thing is they created assets for the upcoming Medgel dispenser. So we had a hint of this in a sneak peek a couple weeks ago that looked to be some sort of station that had these little canisters that looked to be the same size of the canisters you would put in the little boxes beneath medical beds. So there's some new Medgel dispenser that'll be coming soon. So that's interesting. Well, I'm interested to see if there's more hints at medical gameplay updates in the core gameplay section. So we'll see on that later. And then again, the more facial capture stuff for upcoming stuff and stuff are already early into next year. So they're already working on some teams are working on some stuff for several months down the road now. So yeah, very interesting stuff here in animation. Again, we'll see we'll see if there's any other information on some of the medical stuff in the core gameplay section. Next, we have character art. Last month, the character art team progressed with armor for a new gang and supported requests for subscriber flare items and CitizenCon Direct. They also continued to work on variants for gameplay rewards and store items. The concept art team started the exploration phase for new heavy armor. So a new gang. I wonder if that's going to be something in Pyro, something in Stanton. Maybe it's something for Nyx. You never know. Stuff for subscriber flare and CitizenCon Direct. I'm sure they're putting together there's going to be some little like a digital goodie package you can buy for CitizenCon Direct. So that's probably what that is. And then more other variants of other stuff, and of course new heavy armor because there's always new heavy armor. So, nothing too much from them. I'm intrigued to see where this new gang is, though, that they're working on our armor for. So maybe we'll see something on that somewhere else in this report. All right, and now for one of the big sections, really big sections, which is going to be ship art. So in the UK, 3 unannounced ships progressed throughout August. All are currently in various stages within the gray box phase. One is approaching its final review, one is receiving improvements to component accessibility, and the other recently entered following its white box gate review. So one's pretty close to going into Lot 0, so that I could see coming IAE probably. Then the other 2 would probably be for maybe December or early into next year, I would guess, unless they're like really small ships. They can be done pretty quick. For announced ships, the Anvil Paladin progressed into the Lot 0 stage. I think that pretty much confirms. I think we'll see the Paladin at IAE. Having had feedback from the Greybox Gate review actions, the exterior, which was slightly behind the interior, has now caught up, allowing for further refinement between the two. And then below this statement, we have an image that's a work in progress of some outer part of the Paladin. I can't entirely tell what. I want to say it's maybe like one of the front sides of the ship or something. It might be some other random part. Only thing I could really pick out is there's that maneuvering thruster surrounded by that red paint on there. But it looks really nice so far. I love these different kind of patterns of panel lines and texturing and stuff. So it looks really cool. So looking forward to seeing that pretty soon here. So next we have the Kruger L-21 Wolf was released, with the team excited to see the reception to the new ship. They also continue to fix bug issues found during the release, such as the glass shader being excessively worn. I think that was on like one particular paint of it, alongside implementing the component base. The Drake Ironclad and Ironclad Assault progressed toward their white box reviews, with the team finalizing the asset kit that will be used across this and other Drake ships. So they'll probably be in gray box by the end of this month, I would guess. And like I said, that art kit is going to be used for other Drake ships, smaller, bigger. So good to see that they're making some progress on that. Work on the RSI Aurora. Work on the RSI Aurora and Aegis Hammerhead kicked off to bring them up to current standards. I'm so happy about this for the Aurora because it's such an old ship and it needs so much help. And the Hammerhead, because I love the Hammerhead. I love flying it and being a gunner on it. I just wish it didn't get one shot by an Idris. So hopefully this will be something that they're going to bring it up to gold standard, give it all the components and all that sort of stuff. So that'll be nice. But for that, they're focusing first on their cockpit and dashboard, the views of that, as well as physicalizing the components. Okay, next we have another pretty surprising announcement. The MISC Hull B entered pre-production following the approval of its updated concept. That's big. That'll probably, that's of course going to be some ship, something that comes next year sometime. But that's another backlog ship that they're putting into pre-production there, so that's good, getting another one started there. In North America, the RSI Apollo Medevac and Triage continue to be prepared for release, with testing and bug fixing being the focus. Ships also supported the gameplay teams with medical gameplay adjustments, which, again, hopefully, we'll see more of. What is this? Some of the team then moved onto a related but unannounced ship. That's that whole sentence. Related to the Apollo? Is there going to be another variant of the Apollo? Like, I don't know, like a general purpose variant or something? Interesting. Make sure to let me know what you think down in the comments of all this stuff. There's some very interesting stuff in this ship section of this month. Let me know what you think. All right, so we're just about to the end of the ship section, but we do have another image here. This, I assume, is going to be the elevator shaft for the RSI Perseus. It looks quite similar in design to the Polaris. We can see at the bottom here we have level 0, so that should be your deck with the cargo bay and the lower turret access, unless they've added or switched around any other, like the rooms layout and whatnot. And then you have level 1, that should be kind of the main deck with your habitation, I think the torpedo room and the front turret access, maybe some other things as well and whatnot they've added. And then level 2 would be the top deck that has your bridge, and I think some escape pods and possibly engineering, although half of me thinks that space was too small to have engineering to fit all those components, so some stuff might have been flipped around. But I think this is very solidly, we can say this is the Perseus elevator shaft, and looks like it's going to have at least 3 decks, so quite a bit of cool stuff coming for that. They say that the RSA Perseus was prepared for its Lot 0 gate review, with additional lighting and detail passes being done across both the interior and exterior. So it's getting pretty close to done. I think we're probably just going to see that at IAE, so not too much longer for all you Perseus owners. I'm very excited, and I'm sure a lot of you are as well. And then last for the ship section, just short and sweet, the Drake Kraken's pre-production phase continued too. Don't specify what, but they're still working on the pre-production for the Kraken. So, quite a interesting ship section this month. So to recap, there's 3 unannounced ships in the UK getting work done. They didn't mention... I guess they didn't... Oh, never mind. They do mention in North America down there later on in it. So 3 unannounced ships being worked on. One's almost into Lot 0. One's in kind of the middle of it. And one is just barely into Gray Box. Anvil Paladin's in Lot 0. So again, I think that's pretty solid confirmation that'll be coming for IAE. So that'll be kind of the medium-sized ship, I would guess. The Kruger, the L21 Wolf came out. They're working on the component base for that. The Ironclad, both variants are progressing towards their white box reviews. The Aurora and Hammerhead are getting gold standard, so that's good. Big surprise, the Miscol B is entering pre-production. And then the Apollo, Medevac, and Triage are getting ready for release. And then some of the team moved on to that related but unannounced ship. I have to think that's a variant of the Apollo, some other variant, but I don't know. And then lastly, the Perseus is just about through Lot Zero, just about to have its review, and the Kraken's going through pre-production still. So, quite an interesting ship section. Some cool images to take a look at, and I think we'll definitely see some more hints and probably some video and stuff at CitizenCon Direct. They always have like a, there's always a ship section, so they'll probably tease some of these ships and show off some of them and whatnot, and what we'll see for IAE a little bit. So, looking forward to seeing it. All right, so now we're going to continue on through the rest of the monthly report. I usually don't really go over the community section. They just touched on that they had the ship showdown they were covering and all that sort of stuff. There's bar citizens and doing all the stuff for the release of the Wolf. So now let's look at core gameplay. We have a pretty long section, so let's go through it. All right, so core gameplay. Throughout August, the core gameplay teams were heavily involved in the Alpha 4.3 release, though they also made significant progress across many large gameplay systems. The team's focus continued on freight elevators, with further fixes to the issues that put them into an unusable state, as well as improvements to the debug tooling. They're continuing to look into a large range of other widely reported issues, such as unreliable medical beacons and physical exploits. Improvements to medical ship functionality are in progress, including the addition of MedGel, which will be required to allow respawning. This will further differentiate the utility of the various medical vehicles in the game. These improvements also prompted some general improvements to the respawn flow. Okay, so that's a confirmation you will have to have the MedGel to be able to respawn. Luckily, as far as I know, pretty much all like medical ships that have come out for a while have had usually it's beneath the kind of the admin screen. There's a little terminal or cabinet beneath it that has some slots for that. I think maybe the only one that doesn't have that technically is the Idris. So they might have to add, a little something there for that. So we'll have to see exactly how it works, how it differentiates between the different medical vehicles. So looking forward to seeing that. Next, the devs are working to close out the functionality required to support a new creature's unique behaviors and attack moves. Okay, so it's some sort of aggressive... This might be the same thing as the creature that Animation was working on. Probably is. So it sounds like it's something that's going to attack you, so might be a little bit... Maybe it's larger, I don't know. It's going to be more of a predator or something like that. The engineering screen was then updated to show the rate of heat change for components and fixed various bugs. For item recovery, the team added the ability to disable components for ships that have been claimed. Additionally, items will now display a timer until they become bricked after they've been claimed by the original owner. This is also displayed to the player as part of a notification when an item is bricked and a player attempts to use it. So this seems like something to try and prevent duping components, I would guess. So you take I know the process of doing it. People take the components out, they blow up the ship, they claim it, then you can store the components, and then voila, you've doubled them. So now those components will disable after a certain amount of time, I guess. It says that they'll display a timer until they become bricked, per se, after they've been claimed by the original owner. So that's quite interesting. We'll have to see how that, for sure works once we get it. But you kind of do need it to prevent people from just getting the same components over and over and, incentivizing. If you want enough components for everything, you got to actually go get them or find them or buy them from someone else. So next, for crafting, the team implemented an offline version of the Blueprint service, which is used as a stand-in to support the player-bound Blueprint library until the actual service starts development. They also finished the first playable prototype of crafting in a multiplayer environment. So they're pushing forward on crafting still. I doubt we see it this year. If we do, it's going to be probably like a tech preview or something at the end of the year, I would guess. Similar to like the Pyro preview, maybe. So we'll have to see. For control surfaces, improvements to the aerodynamic simulation were implemented, which should address jittering observed at low frame rates. Support for G-limiter was added to the new atmospheric flight mode, and NPCs now fly using control surfaces when in atmosphere. Internally, the team integrated the necessary work from Squadron 42 to conduct an internal playtest with various changes. These, in turn, prompted additional tuning improvements and bug fixes. IFCS saw further support work for Maelstrom. Destroyed parts will now reduce thrust effectiveness, which also addresses a common exploit where non-critical ship parts are destroyed to improve acceleration. This also helps design in better refining when a ship is considered inoperable, even when not fully destroyed. Okay, interesting. Um, Cockpit dashboards will now support the ability to physically animate and vibrate based on various factors, adding another level of fidelity and realism. Examples of triggers include spaceships shooting their weapons or maneuvering at high angles of attack. So the cockpit dashboard. So that's like your HUD, I guess, kind of will move around as well when you're, turning really hard or you shoot your weapons, I guess. That's what it sounds like to me. For quantum travel, the team worked on various bug fix and polish tasks, such as NPCs not being able to perform solo jumps. Quantum interdiction saw further improvements to address the reliability of the system, especially in situations where new quantum interdiction fields appear or disappear after the initial jump has been initiated. Interdicted ships will also now have markers on them to make them more obvious to players who are performing the interdiction. Turret weapons are now prevented from firing when aimed at the host vehicle. This will reduce the need for complex turret angle maps, which have caused turrets to aim up and down erratically as players rotated around. That's kind of nice actually, because I have noticed that a lot of the time when I'm on like the top turrets on the Polaris, just with the kind of the weird shaping of where they sit and where you can kind of look around, you kind of get jittered around sometimes when you're trying to aim smoothly at something. So hopefully that'll fix those issues and make that a little bit nicer of an experience. So that'll be nice to see. Then for radar and scanning, the team worked on various improvements and polish tasks, such as improved UI information about targets and better positioning of the scan information for very large targets. Next, Transport also made good progress toward feature parity with the legacy transit system. This included bringing it at parity with the current behaviors for instanced hangars, scripting support for design, and also making necessary preparations for dynamic server meshing. Part of this initiative involves moving away from interpolated movement to utilize the physics system, which saw a first pass implementation. The inventory rework is progressing well too, with the team implementing proximity looting, which will allow players to loot from multiple nearby inventory containers simultaneously. The new UI has also had filters and search implemented. Then they have an image. I think this is the same image from I think a month or two ago in a Star Citizen Live that they showed this kind of concept art for it. So this is kind of how I should have this up on the screen for you. This is how it's going to look. It looks a lot cleaner, looks a lot nicer, sleeker, and it should work a lot better, especially if you can search and have the filters and whatnot. So sounds like there's some good stuff going on. And then last thing for gameplay is an upcoming event was given additional support to improve existing mission archetypes and better support mission availability scaling. All right, now for economy. Last month, the economy team progressed with the new iteration of the economy based on data they recently gathered. They're currently looking into changes to the buy and sell prices of FPS weapons, armor, and consumables. They're also updating profit margins for salvage vehicles, including components, and the effort versus reward algorithm. This is being done as part of an ongoing initiative to ensure crafting is profitable, revitalize the salvage of vehicle components, and prevent exploits. So, this is another mention of, hmm, this is them saying that they're an ongoing initiative to ensure crafting is profitable. See, that combined with the other mention of crafting in the gameplay section of crafting being like they're working on like an offline version of the blueprint stuff, and that there's a playable prototype of crafting in a multiplayer environment, and as well as the changes to like components being bricked basically after the ship is claimed or whatever. That I don't want to have too much copium, but that makes me think that we could see craft. Like, this sounds like they're starting to ramp up stuff more and more to make sure crafting will actually work when it comes out. So maybe crafting is closer than we think. You'll have to let me know what you think down in the comments. But that's kind of what I get from this section. So we'll have to see what happens. But some very, very cool stuff coming. All right, next we have mission design. The mission team worked hard towards the release of Alpha 4.3, including the new ASD Onyx facilities. They also continued their initiative to improve the mission generation system to help ease the current pain points that affect both the mission team and players. This work is ongoing, but is very exciting already. The devs also continued their work to bring existing missions back to older locations, which will expand the pool of available locations for players and bring back various interesting encounters. Okay, nothing too much from mission design this month. Just working on new stuff, I guess, and bringing back old stuff. Next, we have narrative. With the release of ASD's Onyx facilities, the narrative team turned their focus to polishing the next round of content that players will discover there. The team also wrote and captured several new mission characters that will be making their debut later this year as they continue to focus on improving storytelling across Star Citizen. This month's performance capture session also saw the return of an already released character to come back to pick up some additional lines. While not yet captured, Narrative began writing new scripts for NPCs to help flesh out the lore of specific areas in the game. The hope is that they will continue to expand the collection of conversations that players can overhear across the verse. So, new stuff coming for a character that's already out, and new characters later this year. I don't know if that would be like Wicklow or I forget her name, the lady that talks to you when we had the Hunt the Polaris mission, the advocacy lady, I think is her name. I can't remember her name off the top of my head. So possibly those, or someone else that I just can't think of. So that's pretty interesting. The team also continued to work on developing a new hostile faction that will be making its debut in a later patch, establishing its unique voice and supporting the branding and character art teams. From I think it was animation or no character art or something. They said they were working on stuff for a new gang. I would assume that's what this new hostile faction is. So we'll have to see what that ends up being. And then finally for narrative, last month the team also worked with design on updating the text of a few older contracts to align with improved gameplay flows, as well as tutorial missions that will help players understand a new gameplay mechanic being introduced in a future patch. The team additionally crafted a new fiction piece for this month's subscriber Jump Point magazine that expands upon the current happenings in the Empire. I would guess that new gameplay mechanic is something to do with the medical stuff, I would assume, unless it's something else, but I'm just going to assume it's that for now. All right, we're getting to the last couple of sections here. This is our last big one. This is going to be online technology. In August, the online services team collaborated with QA to test the Stow Context API. Item Imprint v1 development continued as expected. With the blueprint library development done on the service side, related API development began. Online technology also started the discovery phase for the instancing feature. The team is currently working on making the inventory API only accept calls if they affect a specific inventory ID. This is being done ahead of the Entity Graph global database sharding. Regarding the Lazy Inventory Creation Project, that's an interesting name, the team worked on updating calls that could handle it and change the API accordingly. Essentially, the team wants inventories to be created if needed on certain calls. As usual, the online services team worked on various bug fixes and improvements, including items for the mission system and for trace/analytics. Meanwhile, Live Tools continued to enhance their internal support tool. These improvements will help our support staff monitor activity within the tool more effectively, ensuring fair play and a better experience for everyone. The team also kicked off the discovery and early design of a new entitlement service within the Hex NOC entitlements module. The service will support item recovery workflows by tracking entitlement history, status, and source, making it easier to resolve issues quickly and accurately. Live Tools also began restructuring the error reporting system. This upgrade aims to significantly boost the speed and volume of crash processing. As part of this, they're migrating to a new framework that's more scalable and easier to maintain. Finally, in August, the network team progressed with bug fixing and maintenance alongside support for online services item imprinting tasks. They also focused on mapping out their path forward, their path toward instancing and dynamic server meshing. So, main focus for them sounds like they're doing stuff for instancing features and dynamic server meshing, which is going to be needed for a whole host of things down the line. So they're already starting to work on it. And they mentioned it in previous monthly reports, but they're just continuing to chug along on it. I don't think it doesn't sound like from this those two things will be coming for a little while, but they're being worked on. So some good stuff from online technology. All right, and now we're on to our last two sections. These are really short and sweet. So, second to last is research and development. In August, the R&D's team focus remained on analyzing performance and optimizing engine and game code. Pretty sure that's about the same as it was what they said last month. So they're doing a lot of optimizing right now for both the engine and the game code. So nothing too crazy there, except for it'll probably help performance. And then finally for VFX, multiple locations, props, and gameplay elements integral to the entire Alpha 4.3/4.3.1 flow required VFX support, which resulted in incredible visuals that the community have already given great feedback on. Support was also given to the vehicle and creature teams. Oh boy, so that is the August monthly report. I want to say that one was a little bit longer than they usually are. So there's a lot to go through there, and there's a lot of good stuff that they talked about. I'll say usually the biggest things that stand out to me are in the ship section and core gameplay. Again, lots of ships going down the pipeline, things that we don't know about, some new stuff that's a little bit of a surprise being worked on, more stuff, ships getting closer. Lots of gameplay updates for, sounded like stuff for crafting. Wasn't really much, there was like one little line for engineering, but other than that, not much, but good amount of stuff for like control surfaces, and other ship related stuff. Some radar and scanning things, the transport refactor, that sort of stuff, and the inventory rework, which seems to be progressing well. So a lot of good stuff being worked on. I just hope we get to see it sooner rather than later, and it'd be great if it doesn't, majorly affect the game as a whole and make everything super buggy again. So we'll have to see what happens. But I'd love to hear what you think about any section you thought of in particular for the monthly report. Do you have any thoughts on the ships or the gameplay sections that we talked about, or really anything else? Make sure to drop your thoughts down in the comments. If you enjoyed this read through and breakdown of the monthly report, definitely leave a like on the video, as it really helps the channel. And if you want to see more Star Citizen news like this, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow we'll have the latest Squadron 42 monthly, or not monthly report, but newsletter to take a look at. So we'll have to see what there is for that. And we're going to have more stuff. 4.3.1 is supposed to be going to Evocati on Thursday, I believe, so tomorrow, and then possibly to More Waves on Friday. So then we might have some more stuff to check out there. So definitely subscribe if you want to see more updates for that. But that is going to do it for this one. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in the verse.